Queen Margaret stood before her mirror at dawn, carefully wrapping a faded headscarf around her crown. Her reflection showed not a queen, but an ordinary street sweeper, dusty, worn, invisible. "Mother, what are you doing?" Prince Thomas had asked the night before, watching her pack old cleaning tools. "Finding the truth," she'd replied quietly. "People show their real hearts only when they think no one important is watching." Now, as she slipped through the palace's back gate into the awakening city, she carried a broom and a collection bag. Shopkeepers swept dirt toward her without apology. Children ran past, nearly knocking her down. A well-dressed woman wrinkled her nose and said, "These street people, always in the way." No one bowed. No one smiled with respect. For the first time in 20 years, Queen Margaret saw her kingdom's true face. Then she turned a corner and saw a thin young woman carefully sweeping outside a rundown house, her movements gentle despite obvious exhaustion. When their eyes met, the young woman smiled. Actually smiled at a street sweeper. "Good morning, ma'am," the girl said softly. "Can I help you with that heavy bag?" The queen's heart stopped. After 3 days of insults and indifference, here was kindness. Simple, genuine, costly kindness. The girl's name, she would learn, was Emma. And this moment would change both their lives forever. If you're enjoying this story of hidden identity and unexpected love, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter. Comment below. Have you ever discovered someone's true character when they didn't know who you were? Share your story. Queen Margaret sat beside the tall window of the royal palace, watching the courtyard below. The morning sun painted everything gold. The guards at their posts, the gardeners tending roses, the fountains sparkling in the center. Everything looked peaceful, perfect even. But her heart was not at peace. Her son, Prince Thomas, was 28 years old now. Handsome, educated, kind-hearted. Every wealthy family in the kingdom wanted him to marry their daughter. Girls arrived at the palace in expensive cars, wearing designer dresses, their laughter bright and practiced. Queen Margaret had watched them carefully over the past 2 years. She'd hosted tea parties, organized garden walks, arranged private dinners. She'd observed how these young women behaved. Most of them barely glanced at the servants. Their eyes lit up when they saw the gold chandeliers and marble floors, but grew cold when a maid accidentally brushed past them. They took endless photos for social media, posing beside the palace art, but never asked about the kingdom's people or problems. They loved the crown, not the man, the queen whispered to herself. She remembered her late husband, King Richard, who had died 3 years ago. He'd been a high school teacher when they met. No money, no status, just a kind man with a generous heart. She'd fallen in love with him in a small library where he tutored children for free. On his deathbed, he'd gripped her hand tightly. "Margaret," he'd whispered, his voice weak but urgent. "Promise me something. Find Thomas a wife who loves people, not power. A woman with a servant's heart, not a princess complex." Those words haunted her every night. She'd made that promise, but how could she keep it? Every girl who came to the palace wore a mask of politeness. How could she see their true character? 2 weeks ago, she'd introduced Thomas to the daughter of a wealthy businessman. The girl was beautiful, well-spoken, perfect on paper. During lunch, a young server had accidentally spilled water near her chair. The girl's face had twisted with disgust. "Clumsy idiot," she'd muttered, just loud enough for the queen to hear. Thomas had noticed too. Later, he'd come to his mother's room and said gently, "Mother, I can't marry someone who treats people that way. There's no love there, just ambition." The queen had hugged him, proud but troubled. Her son deserved better. The kingdom deserved better. That evening, she'd walked alone through the royal gardens as sunset turned the sky orange and purple. Her silk gown whispered against the grass. Her diamond crown caught the fading light. "God," she prayed quietly, "I'm a queen, but I'm also just a mother. Show me who my daughter-in-law should be. Show me someone real, someone whose kindness isn't an act." A gentle breeze touched her face. In that moment, a thought dropped in her mind, clear, strange, almost radical. If you want to see people's true hearts, don't look like a queen. Her eyes widened. She stared at her hands, soft from palace life. She looked at her expensive gown. She thought about the golden crown on her head. Everyone treated her with respect because of what she wore, not who she was. People bowed, smiled, behaved perfectly, but it was all performance. No one would show their real character to a queen. But what if she wasn't a queen in their eyes? What if she looked like someone they could ignore? Someone they could disrespect? Someone invisible? The idea was crazy. Queens didn't disguise themselves. Queens didn't walk among common people pretending to be servants. But the more she thought about it, the more it made sense. It was the only way to see the truth. That night, Queen Margaret sat at her dressing table and slowly removed her crown. Without it, she looked ordinary. Older. Just another woman. She touched her reflection and whispered, "If I must become invisible to find the right person, then I will." The next morning, before the palace fully woke, she would begin a journey that would test everything she thought she knew about people, power, and love. Queen Margaret woke before dawn. The palace was still silent. No footsteps in the hallways, no voices from the kitchen. Even the birds outside hadn't started singing yet. She moved quietly to her closet and pushed past rows of silk gowns and tailored suits. At the very back, in a storage chest she rarely opened, she found what she was looking for. Old clothes from years ago, back when she'd volunteered at community centers before becoming queen. She pulled out a faded gray dress with a torn hem, a worn headscarf that had lost its color, thick, cheap gloves, flat shoes with scuffed soles. For a long moment, she just held them, her heart pounding. This was really happening. She was really going to do this. She changed quickly, her hands trembling slightly. The rough fabric felt strange against her skin after years of silk and satin. She wrapped the headscarf around her head, covering her hair completely. No makeup, no jewelry, no crown. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The woman staring back looked tired. Poor, forgettable, perfect, she whispered. From the garden shed, she took an old broom and a large cloth bag, the kind street sweepers used to collect trash. She felt ridiculous carrying it through the palace corridors, but also strangely free. At the back gate, the young guard on duty was half asleep. He glanced at her, saw an old cleaning woman, and waved her through without a second look. Just like that, Queen Margaret stepped outside her palace walls and into the real world. The city was waking up. Street vendors pushed carts toward the market. Construction workers headed to building sites. Children in worn uniforms walked to school, their backpacks heavy. No one looked at her. No one bowed. No one even smiled. She walked slowly along the main road, carrying her broom and bag, watching how people behaved when they thought no one important was watching. A businessman in an expensive suit pushed past her roughly, nearly knocking her down. He didn't apologize. A group of teenagers laughed as they threw candy wrappers on the ground right in front of her. "That's what street sweepers are for," one of them said. A woman in a luxury car stopped at a red light, saw the queen standing nearby, and quickly rolled up her window, her face showing disgust. The queen's heart grew heavier with each interaction. This was how invisible people were treated. This was what her husband had meant about seeing people's true hearts. She reached the market district by mid-morning. The streets here were dirtier. Food scraps, broken bottles, plastic bags scattered everywhere. The smell was strong. Flies buzzed around overflowing trash bins. The queen began to sweep, playing her role. She moved slowly, bending to pick up trash and put it in her bag. Her back already hurt. Her hands felt dirty. People passed by, some stepping around her, others walking right through the pile she'd just swept. "Move faster, old woman," a shopkeeper shouted at her. "You're blocking my storefront." She apologized quietly and moved along. At a street corner, she saw a group of well-dressed young women, the type who often came to the palace seeking Thomas's attention. They were taking photos with their phones, laughing loudly. One of them noticed the queen sweeping nearby. "Ugh, gross," the girl said, wrinkling her nose. "Imagine being old and having to clean streets. What a waste of life." Her friends laughed. They moved away quickly, still taking selfies. The queen watched them go, her heart aching. These are the daughters of wealthy families. educated, privileged. It's so cruel to someone they saw as beneath them. Thomas could never marry someone like that, she thought. By afternoon, her feet hurt badly. She was thirsty and hungry. She found a shaded spot under a tree and sat down heavily, her bag of collected trash beside her. An elderly man selling water saw her and walked over. "Sister, are you okay?" he asked kindly. "You look tired." She looked up, surprised by the gentleness in his voice. "I'm fine, thank you." He handed her a bottle of water anyway. "Street work is hard," he said. "Please drink. No charge." Her eyes filled with tears. This poor water seller, who probably struggled to feed his own family, showed her more kindness than any wealthy person had all day. "Thank you," she whispered, accepting the water gratefully. "God bless you." As he walked away, she realized something profound. Kindness wasn't about money or status. The poorest people often had the richest hearts. But she still hadn't found what she was looking for. That rare person who would show kindness to a street sweeper, even when it cost them something. As the sun began to set and the queen prepared to return to the palace, she didn't know that tomorrow she would turn down a particular street and meet a young woman named Emma. A young woman who would change everything. The next morning, Queen Margaret put on the same disguise and left the palace again. This time, she walked deeper into the residential areas, neighborhoods with small houses, narrow streets, and modest lives. She carried her broom and collection bag, moving slowly, observing everything. Children played in dusty yards. Women hung laundry on clotheslines. Men sat on doorsteps, reading newspapers or talking quietly. The queen turned down a street she hadn't explored before. The houses here were older, with cracked walls and rusty gates. But most yards were swept clean. Flowers grew in recycled containers. People took pride in what little they had. Halfway down the street, she noticed a young woman outside a particularly run-down house. The girl was maybe 25, thin, with tired eyes but a gentle face. She was sweeping the yard carefully, even though the broom looked ancient and the task seemed endless. What caught the queen's attention was how thoroughly the girl worked. She wasn't rushing. She swept every corner, picked up every piece of trash by hand, and arranged everything neatly by the gate. The queen walked closer, pretending to sweep the street nearby. "Good morning," the girl said suddenly, looking up with a smile. The queen stopped, startled. In 2 days of walking these streets, almost no one had greeted her. Most people looked through her as if she didn't exist. "Good morning," the queen replied softly. The girl wiped sweat from her forehead and gestured to a small pile of trash by the gate. "I collected this for you," she said. "I know it's your job to pick up street trash, so I kept it here to make it easier. I hope that's okay." The queen's heart skipped. This girl, this exhausted, overworked young woman, had thought about making a street sweeper's job easier. "Thank you," the queen said, her voice catching slightly. "That's very kind." The girl smiled again, a real smile that reached her tired eyes. "It's nothing, ma'am. We should all help each other, right?" Before the queen could respond, a harsh voice cut through the morning air. "Emma, what are you doing out there? Talking to street trash? Get inside now." A heavy-set woman appeared at the door, middle-aged, well-dressed for this neighborhood, her face twisted with irritation. The girl's smile vanished. "Yes, Aunt Patricia," she said quietly. She glanced at the queen with apologetic eyes, then hurried inside without another word. Aunt Patricia looked at the queen with open disgust. "Don't stand in front of my house," she snapped. "You're making the place look worse than it already does." The queen bowed her head humbly. "Sorry, madam. I was just collecting trash." "Then collect it and move along," the woman said before slamming the door. The queen stood there for a moment, her mind racing. That brief interaction had told her so much. The girl, Emma, had shown genuine kindness. But the woman who seemed to control her was cruel and proud. What was their relationship? Why did Emma look so afraid? Over the next few days, the queen returned to that street every morning. She watched carefully, piecing together the story. Emma worked constantly, sweeping, washing, carrying water, hanging laundry. She did everything while the 2 younger girls who lived in the house did nothing. They slept late, played with their phones, and ordered Emma around like a servant. Aunt Patricia, the heavy-set woman, treated Emma even worse. The queen heard her shouting from inside the house daily. "You useless girl! Work faster! Don't you dare sit down! There's still work to do." Yet through it all, Emma remained gentle. When the younger girls mocked her, she didn't fight back. When Patricia screamed at her, she simply bowed her head and worked harder. One morning, the queen deliberately arrived early and waited near Emma's gate. When the girl came out to sweep, the queen greeted her again. "Good morning, Emma." Emma looked surprised that the street sweeper knew her name. "Good morning, ma'am. How are you today?" "I'm well, thank you." The queen paused. "May I ask you something?" "Of course." "That woman who shouted at you, is she your mother?" Pain flashed across Emma's face. "No, ma'am. She's my stepmother. My real mother died when I was young. My father remarried and then he died too, 2 years ago." The queen's heart clenched. "I'm sorry, child." Emma shrugged, trying to look strong. "It's okay. Life is hard for many people, not just me. But you're still kind," the queen observed quietly, "even when others aren't kind to you." Emma looked at her with surprise, as if no one had noticed that before. "My father always told me," she said softly, "that how people treat you doesn't have to change who you are." I try to remember that. Before they could talk more, Patricia's voice boomed from inside. "Emma, where's my tea?" Emma flinched. "I have to go," she whispered. "But thank you for talking to me, ma'am. It's nice to have someone who's kind." She hurried inside, leaving the queen standing in the street with tears in her eyes. This girl, this precious, broken, beautiful-hearted girl. She was exactly what the queen had been searching for. Queen Margaret knew she couldn't make a decision based on one kind gesture. She needed to be sure. She needed to test Emma's heart more deeply. Over the next week, she returned to Emma's street every day, always in her street sweeper disguise. She watched. She listened. She learned. Emma woke before dawn every single day. The queen could hear her moving around inside, even when the sky was still dark, sweeping, preparing breakfast, washing dishes from the night before. When Emma's stepsisters finally woke around 9 or 10, they would immediately start shouting orders. "Emma, where's my breakfast? Emma, iron my dress. Emma, why is this tea cold?" Emma never complained. She simply did what was asked, her movements efficient despite obvious exhaustion. One morning, the queen decided to test Emma directly. She waited by the gate until Emma came out with trash, then she pretended to stumble and fall. "Oh!" the queen cried out, dropping her broom and bag. Emma was at her side in seconds. "Ma'am, are you hurt? What happened?" The queen pretended her ankle hurt. I think I twisted it." Without hesitation, Emma put an arm around her shoulders. "Come, sit here on our doorstep. Rest for a moment." "But your stepmother," the queen started. "Don't worry about her," Emma said firmly. "You're hurt. That's more important." She helped the queen sit, then ran inside and returned with a cup of cool water. "Please drink. The sun is getting hot." The queen accepted the water, watching Emma's face carefully. There was no calculation there. No wondering what she might gain from helping an old street sweeper. Just simple, genuine concern. "Don't you have work to do?" the queen asked. Emma shrugged. "Work can wait a few minutes. People are more important." At that moment, Patricia stormed out. When she saw Emma helping the queen, her face turned red with rage. "What do you think you're doing?" she screamed at Emma. "Wasting time with street trash again?" Emma stood up quickly. "Aunt Patricia," she fell. "She's hurt. I don't care if she's dying." Patricia shouted. "This is not a hospital. Get her away from my house." She turned to the queen with venom in her eyes. "You, get out. Stop coming around here bothering my family." The queen stood slowly, pretending to limp. "I'm sorry, madam. I'm leaving." Emma's eyes were full of tears and apology. "I'm so sorry, ma'am," she whispered. As the queen walked away, her heart was breaking, not for herself, but for Emma. This girl lived in constant fear, constant abuse, yet she still chose kindness. The next day, the queen changed her test. She came earlier and left a small bag of fruit by Emma's gate with a note. "Thank you for your kindness." From the street sweeper. She watched from distance to see what Emma would do. When Emma found the bag, she looked around in confusion. She read the note and smiled softly. But instead of keeping the fruit, she immediately took it inside. Later, through the window, the queen saw Emma cutting the fruit and serving it to her stepmother and stepsisters first. She took only a small piece for herself, the smallest, bruised piece. The queen's vision blurred with tears. Emma had so little, yet she still shared. Another day, the queen pretended to be extremely tired and sat on the curb near Emma's house, her head in her hands. Emma was outside hanging laundry. She noticed immediately. "Ma'am, are you okay?" "Just very tired," the queen murmured. "I've been working since dawn." Emma disappeared inside and returned with a small sandwich wrapped in paper. "Please eat this," she said. "It's not much, but it might help." The queen stared at the sandwich. "But isn't this your food?" Emma smiled. "I already ate," she lied. The queen had watched her all morning. She hadn't eaten anything. "Child, I can't take your food," the queen protested. "Please," Emma insisted. "You need strength for your work." "I'll be fine." The queen accepted the sandwich with trembling hands. Emma had nothing, yet she was willing to go hungry to feed a stranger. Every test confirmed what the queen already knew. Emma's kindness wasn't circumstantial. It wasn't an act. It was simply who she was, a girl who had suffered greatly but refused to let suffering make her cruel. That evening, back in the palace, Queen Margaret sat with Prince Thomas and told him everything. "I found her," she said quietly. "The girl your father wanted you to meet." Thomas listened carefully as his mother described Emma, her kindness, her suffering, her pure heart. "Where is she now?" he asked. "Living as a servant in her stepmother's house," the queen replied. "Treated worse than most people treat their maids." Thomas's jaw tightened. "Then we have to help her. We have to get her out of there." The queen nodded. "Yes, but carefully. We can't just storm in and demand her release. The stepmother would resist. We need to be strategic." Mother and son talked late into the night, forming a plan. They would offer Patricia money, a generous salary to hire Emma as a palace worker. Patricia, who loved money above all else, would agree. And once Emma was safely in the palace, the queen would reveal the truth. About the disguise, about the tests, about what they'd seen in Emma's heart. "What if she refuses?" Thomas asked quietly. "What if she's angry that we tested her?" The queen smiled. "Then we'll know she's not the one. But something tells me Emma will understand. Because true kindness doesn't need recognition. It just exists, quietly changing the world one small act at a time." The next morning, they would set their plan in motion. Queen Margaret sent one of her most trusted guards, Captain Morris, to Emma's neighborhood the next day. He wore plain clothes, nothing that would indicate he worked for the palace. His instructions were clear. Approach Patricia with a job offer. Make it seem like a regular employment opportunity. Offer enough money that Patricia's greed would overcome any hesitation. The queen watched from her carriage parked at the end of the street, her heart pounding. Captain Morris knocked on Patricia's door. She answered with her usual scowl, but it softened slightly when she saw a well-dressed man at her door. "Good morning, madam," Morris said politely. "I'm here on behalf of the Crawford family. They're one of the wealthiest families in the capital, and they're looking for a hard-working house helper. Someone mentioned there might be a young woman in this household who would be suitable." Patricia's eyes lit up with greed. The Crawford family. That name would impress her friends. And if they were offering money, "How much are they paying?" she asked bluntly. Morris named a salary that was generous, far more than Patricia had ever earned. "And the girl would live at their house?" Patricia asked. "Yes. They'll provide room, board, and salary. She'll have her own bedroom, 3 meals a day, and 1 day off per week." Patricia was already calculating. She'd be rid of Emma. No more food to feed her, no more space to house her. Plus, she could brag to neighbors that her stepdaughter worked for the wealthy Crawford family. "Fine," Patricia said quickly. "You can take her. Emma, come here." Emma appeared from inside, her hands still wet from washing dishes. When she saw the stranger and her stepmother's calculating expression, fear crossed her face. "Pack your things," Patricia ordered. "This man has found you a job. You're leaving today." Emma's eyes widened. "Today? But did I ask for your opinion?" Patricia snapped. "Go pack. Now." In her small room, really just a storage space with a mattress on the floor, Emma quickly gathered her few belongings. A couple of old dresses, a photo of her late father, a small Bible her mother had given her before she died. Her hands shook as she stuffed everything into a worn bag. She was scared. She didn't know these Crawford people. What if they were cruel? What if this new place was worse than Patricia's house? But anything, she thought, had to be better than here. She came back outside. Captain Morris smiled kindly at her. "Ready?" She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Patricia didn't hug her goodbye, didn't wish her well. She simply waved her hand dismissively. "Go on then. Don't embarrass me at that house. Work hard and don't be lazy." Emma swallowed her hurt. "Yes, Aunt Patricia." As she followed Captain Morris down the street, she didn't look back. There was nothing to look back at. A sleek black car waited at the corner. Emma had never been in such a vehicle. Her heart raced as Morris opened the door for her. "Please get in. The Crawford estate is about 30 minutes away." Emma climbed in carefully, afraid to touch anything. The seats were soft leather. The car smelled clean and expensive. As they drove through the city, she stared out the window. They passed through commercial districts, then into areas with bigger houses, wider streets, taller gates. Where exactly is this house?" Emma asked nervously. Morris glanced at her in the rearview mirror and smiled. "You'll see soon." They turned onto a tree-lined avenue Emma had only seen in magazines. Mansions stood behind high walls. Security guards stood at gated entrances. The car slowed in front of the largest gate Emma had ever seen. It was ornate, golden, with royal emblems carved into the metal. Emma's breath caught. This is the Crawford house." Morris didn't answer. The gate opened automatically, and they drove through. The driveway seemed endless. Manicured gardens stretched on both sides. Fountains sprayed water into the air. The main building ahead looked less like a house and more like a palace. Emma's chest tightened with panic. "There's been a mistake," she said quickly. "I can't work here. This is too big. I don't know how to—" "It's okay," Morris said gently. "You're exactly where you're supposed to be." The car stopped in front of the main entrance. Morris opened her door. "Come. Someone is waiting to meet you." Emma climbed out on shaking legs. She clutched her bag against her chest like a shield. A kind-looking older woman in a neat uniform appeared at the top of the steps. "Welcome, Emma. I'm Margaret, the head housekeeper. Please come inside." Emma followed her into a foyer that took her breath away. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, paintings that looked hundreds of years old. "I don't understand," Emma whispered. "Who are the Crawfords? Why would they hire someone like me?" The woman, whom Emma didn't yet know was actually Queen Margaret herself, smiled mysteriously. "You'll understand soon. First, let me show you to your room. You can rest and freshen up. Then we'll talk." She led Emma through hallways that seemed to go on forever. Finally, they stopped at a door. "This is your room," Margaret said, opening it. Emma stepped inside and nearly collapsed. The room was bigger than Patricia's entire house. A real bed with a thick mattress and clean sheets. A wardrobe, a desk, a window with curtains, a private bathroom. I'm supposed to sleep here?" Emma asked, her voice breaking. "Yes, dear. This is yours." Emma sat on the edge of the bed and burst into tears. After years of sleeping on a thin mattress on the floor, after years of being treated like garbage, she was in a room fit for a princess. "Why?" she sobbed. "Why would anyone be this kind to me?" Margaret sat beside her and gently took her hand. "Because you deserve kindness, Emma. You deserved it all along." Emma cried harder, years of pain pouring out. Margaret held her until the tears slowed. "Rest now," she said softly. "Later, I have something important to tell you. Something that will explain everything." As she left the room, Emma lay back on the soft bed, her mind spinning. She didn't know that the head housekeeper was actually the queen. She didn't know that the street sweeper she'd helped was the same person. And she definitely didn't know that in a few hours, her entire world would change forever. Emma woke up confused. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The bed was too soft. The room was too quiet. Then she remembered the Crawford house, the mysterious job, the impossible kindness. She sat up slowly and looked around the beautiful room. Sunlight streamed through the window. Someone had left fresh clothes on the chair. A simple but clean dress, much nicer than anything she owned. There was a knock on the door. "Emma, are you awake?" It was Margaret's voice. "Yes, ma'am," Emma called out. Margaret entered with a tray. "I brought you breakfast. You looked exhausted yesterday." Emma stared at the food. Eggs, fresh bread, fruit juice. More food than she'd seen in weeks. This is all for me." "Of course, dear. Eat. Then, when you're ready, please come to the sitting room downstairs. There's someone who wants to meet you." Emma ate slowly, savoring every bite. When she finished, she changed into the new dress and made her way downstairs, following the sound of voices. The sitting room was elegant but comfortable, and sitting in the center, in a high-backed chair, was a woman Emma had never seen before. Regal, beautiful, wearing a simple but expensive gown. Emma stopped in the doorway, suddenly terrified. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude." "Come in, Emma," the woman said gently. "Please sit." Emma perched on the edge of a chair, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The woman studied her carefully. "Do you know who I am?" Emma shook her head. "No, ma'am." "Are you Mrs. Crawford?" The woman smiled slightly. "There is no Mrs. Crawford. That was a story we created to bring you here safely." She paused. "My name is Margaret. Queen Margaret." Emma's mind went blank. "Queen? Yes. And this," she gestured around them, "is not the Crawford state. This is the royal palace." Emma's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The palace. The queen. This was impossible. "I don't understand," she finally whispered. Queen Margaret leaned forward. "Emma, do you remember a street sweeper who came to your neighborhood last week? An older woman you helped several times?" Emma nodded slowly. "Yes. She seemed very tired. I tried to help her when I could." "That woman," the queen said softly, "was me." Emma's eyes widened. "What?" "I disguised myself as a street sweeper," Queen Margaret explained. "I wanted to see how people truly behave when they don't know who's watching. I wanted to find someone with a genuinely kind heart, someone who would treat even the lowest person with dignity." Emma's hands started shaking. "You were testing me?" "Not testing to trick you," the queen said quickly. "Testing to find you. My son, Prince Thomas, is of age to marry. But every girl who comes here seeking him only cares about the crown, the palace, the status. I needed to find someone different, someone who would love the man, not the title." Tears filled Emma's eyes. "I don't understand why you would choose me. I'm nobody. I have nothing. I'm just—" "You're kind," the queen interrupted firmly. "You shared your food with a stranger, even when you were hungry. You helped someone you thought was below you socially. You showed dignity and compassion when others showed cruelty. That's not nothing, Emma. That's everything." Emma covered her face with her hands and sobbed. "I was just trying to be a good person, like my father taught me." "I know," the queen said gently, "and that's exactly why you're here." Just then, footsteps approached. Emma looked up to see a young man enter the room. He was tall, kind-faced, dressed simply despite his obvious wealth. "Emma," Queen Margaret said, "this is my son, Prince Thomas." Emma immediately stood and curtsied awkwardly, nearly falling. Thomas caught her arm gently. "Please don't. You don't have to do that." "I'm sorry, Your Highness. I don't know the proper way." "There's no proper way," Thomas said warmly. "Just be yourself. That's all we want." The queen stood. "I'll leave you two to talk. Take your time." After she left, an awkward silence filled the room. Emma didn't know where to look or what to say. Thomas gestured to the chairs. "Would you like to sit?" They sat. Emma perched nervously on the edge of her seat. "I know this is overwhelming," Thomas said. "Believe me, even I find palace life overwhelming sometimes." Emma managed a small smile. "I don't think we're overwhelmed by the same things, Your Highness." "Thomas," he corrected. "Please just call me Thomas." I can't do that. It wouldn't be proper." He smiled. "My mother told me about you, about how you helped her when you thought she was just a street sweeper, about how you shared your food even when you didn't have enough, about how you chose kindness even when it cost you." Emma looked down at her hands. "I didn't know anyone was watching." "That's exactly the point," Thomas said softly. "You weren't kind because someone was watching. You were kind because that's who you are." Tears streamed down Emma's face again. Why are you telling me this? Thomas took a deep breath. Because my mother believes you might be the answer to years of prayer. Because I'm tired of meeting people who only see my title. Because I want to know the real you. Not because you're trying to impress me, but because you can't help being genuine. Emma looked up at him, confusion and fear in her eyes. What are you asking me? I'm asking, Thomas said carefully, if you would be willing to stay here. Not as a servant, as a guest, so we can get to know each other. No pressure, no expectations, just a chance. Emma's mind raced. This was insane. She was a nobody. He was a prince. This couldn't be real. But looking into his eyes, she saw the same loneliness she'd felt all her life. The same longing for someone who would see the person, not the position. I don't know how to be anything other than what I am, she said quietly. That's all I'm asking for, Thomas replied. Just be Emma. That's more than enough. Emma stayed. Not because she understood what was happening, but because for the first time in years, she felt safe. The first few days were difficult. She couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong. Every time she walked through the palace halls, she expected someone to grab her and throw her out. You're walking like you're about to be arrested, Thomas said one morning, finding her tiptoeing down a corridor. Emma jumped. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm going to break something or do something wrong. You're a guest here, Thomas reminded her gently. You're allowed to walk normally. You're allowed to breathe. Slowly, Emma began to adjust. The palace staff treated her with respect, not as a servant, but as someone under the queen's personal protection. That confused her at first, but she gradually accepted it. Queen Margaret visited her often, sometimes just sitting with her in the garden, talking about simple things, childhood memories, favorite foods, books they'd read. You don't have to be here, Emma said one afternoon. You're the queen. You must have important things to do. Margaret smiled. You are important, Emma. Don't ever think otherwise. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I'm not used to being treated like I matter. I know, the queen said sadly. But you're here now. And here, you matter very much. Thomas began spending time with Emma too, always careful not to overwhelm her. They would walk in the garden together, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about the pressure of being a prince, the weight of expectations, the loneliness of never knowing if people liked him for himself or his title. She told him about her father, about losing her mother as a child, about the years of servitude under Patricia's cruelty. I used to wonder what I did wrong, Emma admitted one day. Why my life was so hard. Why no one loved me. You did nothing wrong, Thomas said firmly. The people who treated you badly, that was their failure, not yours. Weeks passed. Emma began to smile more. She laughed at Thomas's jokes. She learned to eat at the royal dining table without feeling terrified. She started to believe, just a little, that maybe she deserved to be there. One evening, Thomas asked her to join him on the palace balcony. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. This is my favorite view, he said. Whenever palace life feels too heavy, I come here and remember there's a whole world beyond these walls. Emma looked out at the city spreading below them. It's beautiful. So are you. She turned to him, shocked. Thomas, I'm not saying that to flatter you, he said quickly. I'm saying it because it's true. Not just your face, Emma. Your heart, your spirit. Everything about you is beautiful. Emma's breath caught. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Thomas replied. I just wanted you to know, because I don't think anyone has told you that before. He was right. No one had. Patricia had called her ugly, useless, a burden. But beautiful? Never. Thank you, she whispered. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun disappear behind the horizon. For the first time in her life, Emma felt something she'd never felt before, hope. Not just for survival, but for actual happiness. For a future that might include joy, not just endurance. But doubt still whispered in her mind. What if this was temporary? What if they changed their minds? What if someone realized she didn't belong? As if reading her thoughts, Thomas said softly, You're wondering when we'll send you away, aren't you? Emma couldn't lie to him. Yes, we won't, he said simply. My mother didn't bring you here on a whim, Emma. She prayed for someone like you for years. And he paused, choosing his words carefully. I haven't felt this comfortable with someone in my entire life. Emma looked at him, really looked at him. Saw not a prince, but a man who was kind, genuine, and maybe just as lonely as she had been. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. I don't know how to be whatever it is you need. I just need you to be you, Thomas said. That's all I've ever wanted. Meanwhile, in the small house across the city, Patricia was beginning to realize she'd made a terrible mistake. At first, she'd been thrilled to be rid of Emma. One less mouth to feed. One less person to boss around. But then rumors began spreading through the neighborhood. Someone had seen Emma getting into a royal car. Someone else had spotted her at the palace gates. Patricia dismissed it as gossip. Emma working at the palace? Impossible. But the rumors grew stronger. Finally, Patricia decided to find out for herself. She put on her best dress and took a taxi to the palace gates. The guard stopped her. "I'm here to see someone," she announced importantly. "A girl named Emma who works here." The guard looked confused. "Emma? There's no worker here by that name." Patricia's face reddened. "She has to be here. She's my stepdaughter. I sent her here weeks ago." The guard checked his list. "I'm sorry, madam. There's no Emma on the staff roster." Patricia went home furious and confused. Where was Emma? What had happened to her? She would find out soon enough. And when she did, her world would turn upside down. 3 months had passed since Emma arrived at the palace. 3 months of slow healing, growing trust, and something neither she nor Thomas had expected, genuine love. It wasn't dramatic or sudden. It grew quietly, like a flower pushing through concrete. In shared conversations, in comfortable silences, in the way Thomas made Emma laugh, and the way Emma made Thomas feel truly seen. One morning, Queen Margaret called them both to her private sitting room. Her face was serious but not unkind. "I have something important to discuss," she said. "Thomas, the council has been pressuring me about the coronation. Your father has been gone 3 years now. It's time for you to officially take the throne." Thomas nodded. He'd known this was coming. "When? 3 months from now?" the queen replied. "But there's more." She looked between them carefully. "The kingdom expects their new king to have a queen beside him. They want stability. They want to see a royal couple." The implication hung in the air. Emma's heart raced. Thomas reached over and gently took her hand. "Mother," Thomas said slowly, "I want Emma to be that queen. If she'll have me." Emma's breath stopped. "Thomas, I can't, I'm not." "You are," he said firmly, turning to face her. "You're everything a queen should be. Kind, strong, genuine. I love you, Emma. Not because my mother chose you. Because I choose you." Tears streamed down Emma's face. "I'm terrified. I don't know how to be a queen. I don't know royal protocol, or how to." "You'll learn," Queen Margaret said gently. "And I'll help you every step of the way. The question is, do you love my son?" Emma looked at Thomas, really looked at him. At the man who had shown her nothing but kindness. Who made her feel worthy for the first time in her life. Who saw past her poverty and pain to the person she truly was. "Yes," she whispered. "I love him." Thomas's face lit up with joy. "Then marry me. Be my queen. Not because you have to, but because you want to." "Yes," Emma said again, this time stronger. "Yes, I'll marry you." Queen Margaret smiled, her eyes misty. "Then let's prepare for a coronation and a wedding. The kingdom is about to get a queen unlike any they've seen before." The next 3 months were a whirlwind. Emma had lessons every day, history, protocol, public speaking, everything a queen needed to know. She was terrified at first, but Queen Margaret was patient. "You don't have to be perfect," the queen reminded her. "You just have to be yourself. That's what the people need most." Word began spreading through the kingdom that Prince Thomas was marrying, but the palace kept Emma's identity secret. Rumors swirled. Was she a foreign princess? A diplomat's daughter? An actress? No one suspected the truth, that she was a girl who'd been treated as a servant just months ago. On the day of the coronation, Emma woke before dawn. Her hands shook as maids helped her dress. Her gown was simple but elegant, white with gold accents, flowing and beautiful. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The scared, exhausted girl from Patricia's house was gone. In her place stood a woman who had learned to stand tall. Queen Margaret came to her room, carrying a small box. "This was mine when I became queen," she said, opening it to reveal a delicate crown. "I want you to wear it today." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve." "Stop," the queen said firmly but lovingly. "You deserve every good thing that's coming to you. You survived cruelty without becoming cruel. That's royalty, Emma. Not the crown on your head, but the heart in your chest." In the throne room, hundreds of people gathered. Nobles, officials, citizens who'd won lottery seats to witness the historic event. Everyone was curious about the mysterious bride. Thomas stood at the front in royal robes, his heart pounding. He'd never been more certain of anything in his life. The doors opened. Emma stepped through. The crowd gasped. She wasn't what they expected. She wasn't dripping in jewels or walking with haughty confidence. She walked simply, humbly, but with a quiet strength that filled the room. She reached Thomas, and he took her hand, squeezing gently. "You're beautiful," he whispered. The ceremony began. First, Thomas was crowned king. Then, in front of the entire kingdom, he turned to Emma. "Emma," he said clearly, "will you rule beside me? Not as someone beneath me, but as my equal, as my partner, as my queen." "I will," she said, her voice steady despite her trembling. The priest blessed them and placed the queen's crown on Emma's head. The crowd erupted in applause. King Thomas and Queen Emma turned to face the kingdom together. Far away, in a small house, Patricia sat in front of a neighbor's television. The neighbor had invited her to watch the coronation, excited about the new royal couple. When the camera focused on the new queen's face, Patricia's teacup fell from her hand and shattered on the floor. That's impossible," she whispered. Her daughters, sitting nearby, leaned forward and screamed, "That's Emma. That's our Emma." "No," Patricia said, her voice shaking. "It can't be." But it was. The girl she'd treated as garbage. The girl she'd worked until exhaustion. The girl she'd called worthless. She was standing in the palace as the queen of the entire kingdom. Patricia couldn't sleep for 3 days after watching the coronation. Her mind raced constantly. Emma, poor, pathetic Emma, was now the queen. The queen. At first, Patricia felt nothing but shock. Then came the regret. She'd had a future queen living in her house and had treated her like a slave. She could have used that connection. She could have been important. Then came the jealousy, hot and bitter. Why Emma? What made her so special? She was nothing, just a servant girl. But beneath the jealousy, Patricia felt something else. Fear. What if Emma sought revenge? What if she told the king how Patricia had treated her? What if they were punished? Her daughters, Clara and Nina, were panicking. "Mother, what do we do?" Clara asked. "What if she remembers how he treated her? What if she has us arrested?" Patricia's mind worked quickly. She needed to fix this. She needed to get back into Emma's good graces before it was too late. "We'll go to the palace," Patricia decided. "We'll apologize. We'll say it was all a misunderstanding. We'll remind her that we're family." "But Mother," Nina said nervously, "she knows how we treated her." "Then we cry," Patricia snapped. "We say we're sorry. We beg for forgiveness. Rich people love that. It makes them feel powerful." 2 weeks after the coronation, Patricia put on her best dress and forced her daughters to do the same. They took a taxi to the palace gates. The guard stopped them. "State your business." "We're here to see Queen Emma," Patricia announced, trying to sound important. "We're her family." The guard raised an eyebrow. "The queen's family?" "Yes. I'm her stepmother. These are her stepsisters. Surely she's told you about us." The guard hadn't heard anything, but he called inside to confirm. A few minutes later, Captain Morris appeared, the same guard who had taken Emma from Patricia's house months ago. He recognized Patricia immediately, and his expression hardened. "So you've come?" "Yes," Patricia said eagerly. "We want to see Emma. I mean, Queen Emma. We want to congratulate her." Morris studied them coldly. "Wait here. I'll ask if she's willing to see you." Inside the palace, Emma was in the garden with Thomas when Morris approached. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "your stepmother and stepsisters are at the gate. They're requesting an audience." Emma's blood ran cold. Thomas felt her hand tighten in his. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," Emma whispered. "I never expected to see them again." "You don't have to," Thomas said firmly. "I can have them sent away." Emma was silent for a long moment. her mind swirling with memories. The insults, the hunger, the exhaustion, the years of being told she was worthless. But she also remembered her father's words. How people treat you doesn't have to change who you are. No, Emma said finally. I'll see them, but not alone. You and Mother Margaret should be there. 20 minutes later, Patricia, Clara, and Nina were led into a formal receiving room. It was smaller than the throne room, but still incredibly grand. They sat on the edge of their chairs, nervous. The door opened. Emma entered, wearing a simple but elegant dress, her crown resting lightly on her head. Thomas walked beside her, his hand protectively on her back. Queen Margaret followed. Patricia immediately dropped to her knees. Your Majesty, oh, Emma, Your Majesty, we're so happy for you. Her daughters quickly followed suit, kneeling and bowing their heads. Emma stood before them, her face unreadable. Stand up. They obeyed, trembling. Up close, they could see how much Emma had changed. She stood straighter. Her eyes were clear and strong. She didn't look afraid anymore. Why are you here? Emma asked quietly. We wanted to see you, Patricia said quickly, her voice dripping with false sweetness. We missed you so much. Haven't we, girls? Clara and Nina nodded eagerly. So much, Your Majesty. Emma's jaw tightened. You missed me. Yes. The house has been so empty without you. Patricia continued. We know we weren't always. Sometimes we were a bit strict, but it was only because we cared. Strict? Emma interrupted, her voice still quiet, but with steel beneath it. Is that what you call making me sleep on the floor while your daughters had beds? Is that what you call giving me scraps to eat while they feasted? Is that what you call screaming at me, hitting me, telling me I was worthless every single day? Patricia's face paled. Emma, Your Majesty. Emma corrected coldly. Patricia swallowed. Your Majesty, we're sorry. We made mistakes. You didn't make mistakes, Emma said, her voice trembling now. You were cruel. Deliberately, constantly cruel. You took a grieving girl and turned her into a slave. You made me believe I deserved nothing better. Tears streamed down Emma's face, but her voice remained strong. Thomas moved closer, as silent support. I'm sorry, Patricia whimpered, and now she was genuinely crying. Not from remorse, but from fear. Please, Your Majesty, we didn't know you would become queen. If we'd known. There it is, Thomas said suddenly, his voice cutting and cold. If you'd known. You would have treated her well if you'd known she'd become powerful. But you treated her terribly when you thought she was powerless. That tells me everything about your character. Patricia's mouth opened and closed uselessly. Queen Margaret stepped forward. Your Majesty, she said to Emma, what would you like done with them? This was Emma's choice. She could have them arrested. She could have them punished. She had every right. Patricia and her daughters held their breath, terrified. Emma looked at them for a long moment. Then she said something no one expected. Let them go. Patricia's eyes widened. What? Let them go, Emma repeated. I don't want revenge. I don't want them punished. I want them to leave and never contact me again. But Emma, Thomas started. They can't hurt me anymore, Emma said, looking at him. They only had power over me when I had nothing. Now I have everything that matters, love, dignity, purpose. They can't take that away. She turned back to Patricia. You're free to go. But understand this. You don't get to be part of my life. You don't get to claim connection to me. You're strangers now. Nothing more. Patricia opened her mouth to argue, but Morris stepped forward. You heard the queen. Leave. Now. As they were escorted out, Patricia's mind spun. She'd come hoping to gain status through Emma. Instead, she'd been permanently cut off from any benefit Emma's position might bring. The door closed behind them. Emma's shoulders sagged. Thomas immediately wrapped his arms around her. That was incredibly brave, he whispered. Emma clung to him, shaking. I thought it would feel good to confront them. Instead, I just feel sad. That's because you're kind, Queen Margaret said gently. Cruel people want revenge. Kind people just want peace. 6 months passed after Patricia's visit. Emma never heard from her stepmother or stepsisters again. At first, she worried they might cause trouble, but they'd vanished completely from her life. Queen Margaret assured her, they won't risk approaching you again. They know they have nothing to gain and everything to lose. Emma focused on her new role. Being queen was harder than she'd imagined. There were meetings with officials, public appearances, charity events, and constant scrutiny from the media and public. But Emma brought something to the role that previous queens hadn't: genuine compassion born from suffering. When she visited hospitals, she didn't just shake hands and pose for photos. She sat with patients. She listened to their stories. She remembered what it felt like to hurt and have no one care. When she toured poor neighborhoods, she didn't do it from behind security barriers. She walked the streets, talked to struggling families, and actually remembered their names. "You're making the other royals look bad," Thomas teased her one evening. Emma smiled. "I'm just being myself. Isn't that what you asked for?" "It's exactly what I asked for," he replied, pulling her close. "And exactly what this kingdom needs." One afternoon, Emma was reviewing requests for royal assistance when she noticed a familiar street name. Her heart skipped. It was her old street, the neighborhood where Patricia's house stood. The request was from a community organization asking for funding to build a youth center. Kids in that area had nowhere safe to go after school, so they ended up on the streets, vulnerable to crime and drugs. Emma's hands trembled as she read the proposal. This was the neighborhood where she'd suffered. She could easily ignore it. Move on. Let someone else help them. But she thought of the children there, children who might be going through what she went through. Children who needed hope. "Fund it," she told Thomas that evening. "Fully fund it. And I want to be there when it opens." "Are you sure?" Thomas asked carefully. "That's your old neighborhood. Going back there might be painful." "It will be," Emma admitted. "But those kids need to know that pain doesn't have to be permanent, that their current circumstances don't define their future." 3 months later, the youth center opened. It was bright and colorful, with computers, books, sports equipment, and trained counselors. Emma and Thomas attended the opening ceremony. When their car pulled up, a crowd had gathered, curious residents who'd heard the queen herself was coming. Emma stepped out, and a murmur ran through the crowd. Some people recognized her. "Wait, isn't that the girl who used to live at Patricia's house?" someone whispered. "That can't be her." "It is. It's Emma." As Emma walked toward the building, she noticed Patricia standing at the back of the crowd. Their eyes met. Patricia looked smaller somehow, older, defeated. She started to turn away, but Emma made a decision. "Wait," Emma called out. The crowd hushed. Patricia froze. Emma walked toward her, and people stepped aside. Patricia's face showed fear and shame. "Your Majesty, Patricia started. "I'm not here to confront you," Emma said quietly. "I'm here to tell you something. I forgave you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. "I was so cruel to you." "Yes, you were," Emma agreed. "And you have to live with that. But I don't have to carry it anymore. I hope you find peace too, Patricia. Real peace, not just comfort." She turned and walked away, leaving Patricia standing there, finally understanding the full weight of what she'd lost. Not just connection to a queen, but the chance to know a truly good person. Inside the youth center, Emma spoke to the gathered children. "I used to live in this neighborhood," she told them honestly. "I know what it's like to feel invisible, to think no one cares about you, to believe you'll never escape your circumstances." The children stared at her, shocked. A queen who understood them? "But I also learned something important," Emma continued. "Your circumstances are temporary. Your character is permanent. Choose to be kind, even when others aren't kind to you. Choose to work hard, even when it seems pointless. Choose to hope, even when hope seems foolish. Because you never know when one small act of kindness might change your entire life." She thought of that day at the gate, offering water to an old street sweeper. Such a small thing, yet it had led to this. After the ceremony, a young girl approached Emma nervously. She was thin, with tired eyes that reminded Emma of herself. "Your Majesty," the girl whispered, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Is it true that you were once poor like us?" Emma knelt so they were eye level. "Yes, I was treated very badly. I was hurt and scared and alone. But you became a queen," the girl said, hope lighting her face. "So there's hope for me too?" Emma took the girl's hands. "There's always hope. But even if you never wear a crown, you can still live like royalty, by treating people with kindness, dignity, and love. That's what real royalty looks like. The girl hugged her tightly. Emma held her, blinking back tears. That evening, back at the palace, Thomas found Emma standing on her private balcony, looking out at the city lights. "How are you feeling?" he asked, wrapping an arm around her. "Grateful," Emma said, "for everything. For your mother seeing me. For you choosing me. For second chances." "You gave Patricia a second chance today," Thomas observed. "That was generous." Emma shook her head. "I didn't do it for her. I did it for me. Holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting her to die. I'm choosing to be free." Thomas kissed her forehead. "You're exactly the queen this kingdom needs." Below them, the city hummed with life. Somewhere in those streets, there were other Emmas, people struggling, people hurting, people wondering if things would ever get better. But now there was a queen who understood them, a queen who'd walked in their shoes, a queen whose heart had been broken and healed, and now existed to help others heal too. Queen Margaret joined them on the balcony. "I've been thinking about that day I disguised myself as a street sweeper," she said. "About all the people who were cruel to me. About how angry I was." "And?" Emma asked. "And I'm grateful for them too," the queen replied. "Because their cruelty helped me recognize your kindness. Sometimes we need darkness to appreciate the light." The three of them stood together in comfortable silence, a family built not on blood but on love, respect, and the understanding that true royalty has nothing to do with crowns and everything to do with character. Far across the city, Patricia sat alone in her small house. Her daughters had moved out, ashamed to be associated with her. Neighbors avoided her, knowing how she'd treated Emma. She finally understood. She'd had something precious in her home and had thrown it away. Not a future queen, but a genuinely good person. The crown had just made it obvious to everyone else what had always been true. Emma's worth was never determined by her circumstances. It had always been there, waiting to be recognized by someone wise enough to see it. And because one queen disguised herself as a street sweeper, and because one servant girl chose kindness over bitterness, 2 lives changed. And with them, an entire kingdom learned what real royalty looks like. The end. Thank you so much for watching this incredible journey from servant to queen. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Share this video with someone who needs encouragement today. Comment below, what was your favorite moment from Emma's story? Remember, your current circumstances don't define your future. Keep being kind, keep hoping, and keep believing that better days are coming. You never know when one small act of kindness might change your entire life. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next story. Until next time, keep shining. Sparkles ***.